What happens when a man breaks the heart of a woman who loved him with everything she had? Does she crumble? Or does something far more powerful awaken inside her? Carl Jung would say the pain of betrayal isn't just a wound, it's a catalyst for transformation. When a good woman is hurt, she doesn't just walk away. She rises, reshaped by clarity and strength, while the man faces a quiet reckoning with his own shadows. In this video, we dive into Carl Jung's profound insights to uncover why hurting a good woman changes everything for her, for him, and for the path to wholeness, from the hidden forces of the shadow to the awakening of the authentic self. Join us to explore what follows when love meets pain, and how it might reflect your own journey. When a man hurts a woman who loves him deeply, it's easy to point fingers and call it betrayal. But Carl Jung would ask us to look deeper past the surface of the act, into the hidden forces driving it. The pain inflicted isn't just about a moment of cruelty or carelessness. It's a manifestation of something far more profound, the shadow. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the part of ourselves we deny, the fears, insecurities, and unresolved wounds we bury deep. When a man wounds a good woman, it's rarely about her. It's about the shadow he hasn't faced, the parts of himself he can't bear to see reflected in her love. In this chapter, we'll explore why this hurt happens, how Carl Jung's concept of the shadow and the anima, the feminine aspect of a man's psyche, play a role, and what it reveals about the unconscious forces at work. Let's start with a story. Meet John, a 32-year-old architect with a promising career and a charming smile. To the outside world, he's confident, driven, a man who has it all together. But beneath the surface, John carries a weight he rarely acknowledges, a fear of vulnerability, rooted in a childhood where he learned to hide his emotions to feel safe. When he met Sarah, a 29-year-old teacher who loved him with unwavering honesty, he felt something new. Someone saw him, flaws and all, and still chose to stay. But that same love terrified him. Sarah's openness, her willingness to embrace his imperfections, shone a light on the parts of himself he'd kept in the dark. Instead of meeting her love with courage, John pushed her away. He dismissed her efforts, ignored her needs, and let small betrayals pile up: late nights at work, broken promises, moments of coldness. It wasn't that he didn't care. It was that her love exposed his shadow, and he wasn't ready to face it. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is everything we refuse to see in ourselves, the anger, shame, or fear we project onto others to avoid confronting. For John, his shadow was the belief that he wasn't worthy of love, a belief so painful he couldn't acknowledge it. Instead, he projected it onto Sarah, subtly blaming her for expecting too much, for being too emotional, for wanting a closeness he wasn't prepared to give. This is where Carl Jung's concept of the anima comes in. The anima, the feminine archetype in a man's psyche, represents his capacity for connection, empathy, and emotional depth. When a man hasn't integrated his anima, when he hasn't learned to embrace these qualities within himself, he struggles to receive love that demands vulnerability. Sarah's love asked John to meet her in that space of openness, but his unintegrated anima made it feel like a threat. So, he hurt her not because she was lacking, but because he couldn't face the mirror she held up to his soul. This dynamic isn't unique to John. Let's look at another example. Michael, a 45-year-old entrepreneur, was married to Lisa, a woman who supported him through every high and low. Lisa's loyalty was unshakable. She believed in Michael's dreams, even when he doubted himself. But as his business grew, so did his insecurities. Deep down, Michael feared he didn't deserve her faith in him. Instead of confronting that fear, he buried it. focusing on work and distancing himself from Lisa. He dismissed her attempts to connect, criticized her for being too sensitive, and let resentment build. When Lisa finally confronted him about his emotional absence, he lashed out, blaming her for not understanding his stress. In Jungian terms, Michael's shadow, his fear of inadequacy, was driving his actions. His unintegrated anima made it impossible for him to meet Lisa's love with the vulnerability it required. The hurt he caused wasn't about Lisa's worth, it was about his inability to face his own. Carl Jung believed that when a man hurts a woman, it's often a projection of his shadow. The qualities he criticizes in her, her emotionality, her need for connection are often the qualities he suppressed in himself. The anima, when unacknowledged, becomes a source of conflict. A man who hasn't integrated his anima might see a woman's strength as weakness, her openness as neediness, her love as a burden. This projection creates a cycle of hurt. The woman gives her heart. The man pushes it away, and both are left grappling with the consequences. For the woman, the pain is immediate, a wound to her trust and self-worth. For the man, the consequences are slower, often hidden until it's too late. Why does this happen? Because facing the shadow is hard. It requires courage to look at the parts of ourselves we've buried, the insecurities, the fears, the shame. For John, it was easier to dismiss Sarah's love than to confront his fear of being unlovable. For Michael, it was simpler to blame Lisa than to admit he felt unworthy of her faith. Carl Jung taught that the shadow doesn't just hide in the dark, it shapes our actions, especially in relationships. When a man hurts a good woman, he's not just hurting her, he's acting out the pain of his own unexamined shadow. And that pain, left unaddressed, becomes a barrier to the love he claims to want. This is where the tragedy begins. A good woman, like Sarah or Lisa, often loves with a depth that sees beyond a man's flaws. She sees his potential, his heart, even when he can't. But that same love can feel like a spotlight on his shadow, exposing what he's not ready to face. Instead of rising to meet her, he retreats. And in doing so, he wounds her. Carl Jung would say, this isn't just a personal failing, it's a universal pattern. The unintegrated shadow and anima create a disconnect, not just between two people, but within the man himself. The hurt he causes is a reflection of his own inner conflict, a battle he's fighting without even knowing it. For the woman, this hurt is a catalyst. It's the spark that begins her transformation, as we'll explore in the next chapter. But for the man, it's a missed opportunity, a chance to face his shadow and grow that he let slip away. If you've ever hurt someone you loved, or been hurt by someone you trusted, Carl Jung's wisdom offers a way to understand why. The shadow behind the hurt isn't just a source of pain, it's an invitation to look deeper, to confront what's hidden, and to start the journey toward wholeness. Let's move to the next chapter to see how this pain awakens the good woman and sets her on a path of profound change. When a good woman is hurt, the pain cuts deep, not just because of the betrayal, but because it challenges the very core of who she is. Yet, in that wound lies a spark, a catalyst for something extraordinary, her awakening. Carl Jung would say, this moment of heartbreak isn't the end, it's the beginning of individuation, the journey toward her authentic self. Instead of breaking under the weight of rejection, a good woman transforms, not through anger or revenge, but through quiet clarity and inner strength. In this chapter, we'll explore how pain becomes a doorway to self-discovery, how Carl Jung's concept of individuation shapes her transformation, and why this awakening makes her unstoppable. Let's ground this in a story. Meet Emma, a 29-year-old graphic designer who poured her heart into her relationship with John, the architect we met in the last chapter. Emma believed in John's potential. Even when he doubted himself, she stayed through his late nights, his emotional distance, his moments of coldness, hoping her love would help him find his way. But when John's dismissals turned into repeated betrayals, broken promises, harsh words, neglect, Emma felt her world crack. Late at night, lying awake, she began to question everything: her worth, her choices, the love she'd given so freely. Yet, instead of sinking into despair, something shifted. Those sleepless nights became a crucible, a space where Emma started to see herself clearly for the first time. This wasn't destruction, it was the beginning of her awakening. Carl Jung taught that pain, especially in relationships, can be a powerful catalyst for individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of the psyche, including the shadow. For Emma, the hurt forced her to confront her own shadow, the part of her that believed she needed John's validation to feel worthy, the part that silenced her needs to keep the peace. In those quiet moments of reflection, she began to ask hard questions. Why did I ignore the red flags? Why did I give so much to someone who couldn't receive it? These questions weren't about self-blame. They were about self-discovery. Carl Jung would say, Emma was starting to integrate her shadow, peeling back the layers of self-doubt to uncover her authentic self, the woman who didn't need to shrink to be loved. This awakening isn't loud or vengeful. It's a quiet revolution. Emma didn't lash out at John or seek revenge. Instead, she turned her energy inward. She started journaling, diving into Carl Jung's ideas about the shadow and the authentic self. She took up painting again, a passion she'd set aside to prioritize John's needs. With every brushstroke, she reclaimed a piece of herself. Carl Jung believed that individuation is about becoming who you were always meant to be, free from the roles society or relationships impose. For Emma, this meant letting go of the version of herself that existed for John, the pleaser, the supporter, the one who dimmed her light to make him comfortable. In her pain, she found clarity. Her worth wasn't tied to his inability to see her. Let's look at another example. Sophia, a 37-year-old nurse, loved her partner, Michael, with a depth that saw past his flaws. She supported him through his entrepreneurial struggles, believing in him even when he faltered. But Michael's growing distance and criticism, calling her too clingy or overly emotional, chipped away at her. When she finally confronted him, his dismissal broke something inside her. Yet, instead of collapsing, Sophia turned to therapy, where she discovered Carl Jung's work. Through therapy, she faced her shadow, the fear of being unlovable that kept her in a relationship where she wasn't valued. She began to rebuild, not by closing her heart, but by protecting it better. She took up yoga, started volunteering, and found joy in her own company. Sophia's pain didn't make her bitter, it made her wiser, stronger, more herself. Carl Jung's concept of individuation explains why this transformation is so powerful. When a good woman is hurt, she's forced to confront the parts of herself she's ignored, the insecurities, the self-doubt, the compromises she made to be loved. This confrontation isn't easy, but it's liberating. By facing her shadow, she begins to integrate it, building a stronger foundation for her authentic self. Emma realized she didn't need John's approval to shine. Sophia understood that her love wasn't a weakness, it was a strength that deserved someone who could match it. This process isn't about becoming cold or shutting off emotions, it's about developing discernment, learning to give love where it's valued, and refusing to settle for less than she deserves. This awakening changes everything. The good woman doesn't just heal, she rises. She takes the energy she once poured into a relationship and redirects it toward her own growth. Emma's paintings became a way to express her inner world, earning her recognition in local art circles. Sophia's volunteering led her to a community that appreciated her compassion. Carl Jung would say this is the essence of individuation. The pain of betrayal becomes a doorway to wholeness, where the woman becomes more than she was, not because of the hurt, but because of what she chose to do with it. She doesn't build walls out of bitterness. She builds boundaries out of wisdom. For the woman, this awakening is a rebirth. It's the moment she stops defining herself through someone else's eyes and starts seeing her own value. But for the man who hurt her, this transformation is a mirror he can't ignore. As we'll explore in the next chapter, if you've ever been hurt by someone you loved, Carl Jung's wisdom reminds you that your pain isn't the end. It's the beginning of something greater. Your awakening is waiting, and it's more powerful than you know. When a man hurts a good woman, he may think the moment passes, that the pain he caused fades with time, leaving no real consequences. But Carl Jung would argue otherwise. The act of wounding someone who loved him deeply sets off a silent ripple, one that returns to him as a quiet punishment. This isn't about dramatic confrontations or revenge. It's about the slow, haunting realization of what he's lost. Not just in her, but in himself. In Jungian terms, this punishment is the consequence of failing to face his shadow. The unacknowledged parts of his psyche that drove him to hurt her in the first place. In this chapter, we'll explore why this regret is so profound, how Carl Jung's concept of the shadow shapes the man's loss, and why the absence of a good woman becomes a mirror he can't escape. Let's return to John, the 32-year-old architect we met earlier. When John pushed Sarah away with his dismissals and betrayals, he didn't expect her to leave. He thought her loyalty would keep her by his side, that her love would absorb his inconsistencies. But when Sarah walked away, not with anger, but with quiet resolve, something shifted. At first, John brushed it off. He told himself he was fine, that he could move on. But as weeks turned into months, a strange emptiness crept in. He'd scroll through social media and see Sarah thriving her art exhibitions, her confident smile, her new life, radiating purpose. Each glimpse was a pang, a reminder of the woman he failed to value. Carl Jung would say this is the shadow at work. John's regret wasn't just about losing Sarah, it was about confronting the parts of himself he'd refused to face, the insecurities and fears that made him push her away. Carl Jung taught that the shadow, those hidden aspects of ourselves we deny, doesn't just influence our actions, it shapes our consequences. For John, his shadow was the belief that he wasn't worthy of love, a fear he projected onto Sarah by dismissing her devotion. When she left, he was forced to face that shadow, not through her words, but through her absence. Every quiet moment, late nights alone, conversations that felt hollow without her became a mirror, reflecting his unexamined flaws. Carl Jung called this the work of the unconscious. When we fail to integrate our shadow, life finds ways to confront us with it. For John, Sarah's departure wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the beginning of a reckoning with the man he could have been if he'd faced his shadow sooner. Let's look at another example. Michael, the 45-year-old entrepreneur we met earlier, thought Lisa would always be there. No matter how much he distanced himself, her unwavering support had been a constant, a light he took for granted. But when Lisa finally left, choosing herself after years of being unseen, Michael was blindsided. He tried to fill the void. New relationships, more work, fleeting distractions, but nothing felt the same. Lisa's absence wasn't just physical, it was a void in his soul. He missed her belief in him, the way she saw his potential when he couldn't. Carl Jung would say Michael was grappling with the consequences of an unintegrated shadow. His fear of inadequacy, buried deep, had led him to criticize Lisa instead of confronting his own doubts. Now, her absence forced him to see what he'd lost. Not just a partner, but the version of himself that only existed in her presence. This quiet punishment is subtle but relentless. It's not about external consequences like arguments or public shame. It's an internal reckoning. Carl Jung believed that when a man fails to integrate his shadow, he creates a disconnect within himself. By hurting a good woman, he severs the connection to the qualities she brought out in him: confidence, vulnerability, hope. For John, Sarah's love had made him feel capable of more. But without her, he was left with the hollow reality of his unaddressed fears. For Michael, Lisa's faith had given him strength, but her absence left him questioning his worth. This loss isn't just about the woman, it's about the man he could have become. The potential he squandered by not facing his shadow. The tragedy lies in the timing. Carl Jung noted that the unconscious often reveals itself too late. A man like John or Michael might not feel the weight of their actions until the woman is gone. Thriving in a life that no longer includes him, they expect her to wait, to forgive one more time, to stay while they figure things out. But a good woman, once awakened, doesn't linger. Her departure isn't about punishment, it's about self-preservation. Yet for the man, her absence becomes a haunting reminder of what he failed to cherish. Carl Jung would say this is the psyche's way of teaching. The shadow you ignore will find a way to make itself known, often through loss. This reckoning isn't just emotional, it's existential. John found himself comparing every new relationship to Sarah, not because he wanted to, but because his soul remembered what it felt like to be truly seen. Michael noticed an ache in quiet moments, a longing for the peace Lisa brought to his chaos. Carl Jung's insight is profound. When you hurt someone who loves you deeply, you don't just lose them, you lose a part of yourself. The good woman's love was a mirror, reflecting not just who you are, but who you could be. When she's gone, that mirror shatters, leaving you to face the fragments of your unintegrated shadow alone. If you've ever caused pain in a relationship, Carl Jung's wisdom offers a path forward. The quiet punishment isn't meant to destroy you. It's an invitation to face your shadow, to do the inner work you've avoided. For John and Michael, the loss of Sarah and Lisa was a wake-up call, a chance to start their own journey of individuation. In the next chapter, we'll explore the lessons both the man and the woman can learn from this pain, and how Carl Jung's insights guide them toward healing and wholeness. The pain of a broken heart, the sting of betrayal, and the weight of regret, they're not just moments of suffering. For Carl Jung, they're invitations to grow, to confront the shadow, and to move toward wholeness. When a man hurts a good woman, the consequences ripple through both their lives, sparking transformation for her and a reckoning for him. But Carl Jung's wisdom offers more than an explanation. It provides lessons for both, guiding them toward healing and a deeper understanding of themselves. In this chapter, we'll explore the lessons embedded in this pain, how Carl Jung's concepts of individuation, the shadow, and the anima illuminate the path forward, and why this journey is about becoming who you're meant to be. Whether you're the one who was hurt or the one who caused the hurt, let's return to Emma, the 29-year-old graphic designer we met earlier. After John's betrayals, Emma's pain led her to a profound awakening. She began painting again, channeling her emotions into art that resonated with others. Through therapy and Carl Jung's teachings, she learned to face her shadow, the part of her that sought validation through John's love. This wasn't just healing, it was individuation. the process of becoming her authentic self. Emma's lesson was clear. Her worth didn't depend on someone else's ability to see her. By integrating her shadow, she built boundaries, not walls, choosing to give her love where it was valued. Today, Emma runs a small art studio, teaching others to express their inner worlds. Her pain didn't break her. It shaped her into a woman who knows her value and lives it unapologetically. Carl Jung believed that pain, especially in relationships, is a catalyst for growth. For the woman who's been hurt, the lesson is about reclaiming her power. Emma learned to redirect the energy she once gave to John into her own passions. This is the essence of individuation, using life's challenges to uncover your true self. Carl Jung would say, Emma's journey wasn't just about recovering from heartbreak. It was about discovering the strength she always carried. By facing her shadow, the self-doubt and compromises she made, she became more whole. This lesson isn't about closing her heart, but about giving it wisely. To herself first, and then to those who deserve it. For every woman who's been hurt, Carl Jung's wisdom offers a truth. Your pain is a doorway to becoming the person you were always meant to be. Now, let's look at John, the 32-year-old architect who hurt Emma. His quiet punishment, the regret and emptiness that followed her departure, wasn't the end of his story. Carl Jung taught that the shadow, when confronted, becomes a teacher. John's loss forced him to face the insecurities he'd buried, the fear of being unlovable that led him to push Emma away. Through therapy, John began exploring Carl Jung's concept of the Anima, the feminine aspect of his psyche that he'd suppressed. He realized that his inability to meet Emma's love with vulnerability stemmed from a disconnect with his own emotional depth. This was his lesson to grow. He had to integrate his Anima, embracing empathy and connection rather than hiding behind pride or distance. Today, John is working on himself, not to win Emma back, but to become a man who can love authentically. His pain, like hers, was a call to individuation. Another example brings this to life. Sophia, the 37-year-old nurse who left Michael after years of being undervalued, found her strength through volunteering and yoga. Her lesson was about self-love. She realized that giving everything to someone who couldn't receive it didn't diminish her worth, it highlighted her resilience. By integrating her shadow, the fear of being unlovable, Sophia became a beacon for others, leading mindfulness workshops that help people connect with their authentic selves. For Michael, the 45-year-old entrepreneur, the lesson came later. Lisa's absence forced him to confront his shadow, the fear of inadequacy that made him criticize her. Through Jungian analysis, he began to understand his Anima, learning to value emotional connection over external success. Michael now mentors young entrepreneurs, emphasizing balance and self-awareness, a direct result of the lessons his regret taught him. Carl Jung's insights reveal that the pain of hurting or being hurt is a shared opportunity for growth. For the woman, it's a call to reclaim her power, to see her value through her own eyes rather than someone else's. For the man, it's an invitation to face his shadow and integrate his Anima, becoming capable of the love he once pushed away. These lessons aren't about blame, they're about transformation. Carl Jung believed that relationships, even painful ones, are mirrors reflecting our unconscious. When a good woman is hurt, both she and the man who hurt her are offered a chance to grow. She learns to rise above, to love herself with the same intensity she once gave away. He learns to face the parts of himself he's avoided, to become a man who can meet love with courage. These lessons are universal. Whether you're the one who's been hurt or the one who caused pain, Carl Jung's wisdom offers a path forward. For the woman, it's about embracing individuation, using the pain as fuel to become your authentic self. For the man, It's about doing the inner work, facing the shadow, integrating the anima to grow into someone worthy of love. Both journeys lead to wholeness, not just for the individual, but for the relationships they'll build in the future. Emma's art studio and Sophia's workshops are gifts born from pain. John's therapy and Michael's mentorship are steps toward redemption. Carl Jung would say this is the alchemy of the psyche, turning the lead of pain into the gold of self-discovery. If you're navigating the pain of a broken relationship, Carl Jung's teachings remind you that this isn't the end, it's a beginning. Whether you're healing from being hurt or learning from the hurt you've caused, there's a path to wholeness waiting. In the next chapter, we'll wrap up with a powerful call to embrace your journey. Whether you're rising from pain or seeking redemption, and how your transformation can light the way for others. Here we are, at the end of this journey through the pain, transformation, and lessons that unfold when a good woman is hurt. Carl Jung's wisdom shows us that heartbreak isn't just a wound, it's a doorway to awakening. For the woman, it's a call to rise, to reclaim her worth, and to become her authentic self through the fire of individuation. For the man, it's a quiet reckoning, an invitation to face his shadow and grow into the person he was meant to be. Whether you've been hurt or caused hurt, this pain is a teacher, guiding you toward wholeness. Your journey, whether you're healing, reflecting, or rebuilding, isn't just personal. It's a spark that can light the way for others. If this resonates with you, don't keep it inside. Share your story in the comments below. Have you risen from heartbreak? Or are you learning from the pain you've caused? Let's build a community of seekers who dare to grow. Subscribe to Young Psyche Hub and hit the bell to join us for more insights into love, loss, and self-discovery through Jung's lens. Like this video, if it touched your heart, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Together, we're not just healing, we're awakening to the truth of who we are. Let's keep growing, one conscious step at a time.